Maya's alarm buzzed at 6:30 a.m., the same time it had for 3 years. 7 hours of sleep should have been enough, but her body felt like it was swimming through molasses. She rolled over in her San Francisco apartment, squinting at the morning light filtering through cheap blinds, and wondered why she felt more exhausted now than when she'd gone to bed. The mirror in her tiny bathroom told the same story it had been telling for months. Puffy eyes, skin that looked drained despite expensive serums, and a midsection that seemed to expand no matter how many spin classes she endured or salads she forced down. At 32, Maya felt like she was aging in fast forward, and every expert she'd consulted had the same advice. Eat less, move more, try harder. She grabbed her phone while brewing coffee, immediately diving into emails from her marketing job. The blue light felt harsh against her tired eyes, but this was routine. Check messages, scroll through fitness influencers promising transformation in 30 days, drink caffeine, repeat. Maya had tried everything: keto, intermittent fasting, HIIT workouts at 5 a.m., meditation apps that she'd start and abandon within a week. "You look tired, Maya," her colleague Chen said when she arrived at the open plan office. He was older, maybe 50, but moved with an ease that Maya envied. Born in Kyoto, Chen had worked at the company for 5 years, always calm even during crises. "I feel like I haven't slept in months," she admitted. "Even when I get 8 hours, I wake up exhausted." Chen paused, considering. "In Japan, my grandmother always said the body remembers how you treat it, not just how much you sleep." She never went to a gym, but she was strong until she was 93. Maya had heard stories like this before, people who seemed to effortlessly maintain health while she struggled with every pound, every sleepless night. But something in Chen's voice was different. No sales pitch, no miracle cure, just quiet observation. That evening, Maya found herself researching not another diet plan, but something Chen had mentioned: traditional Japanese daily habits. Most articles focused on superfoods or exercise routines, but one piece caught her attention. It described morning breathing practices that Japanese women had used for generations, not for weight loss, but for nervous system regulation. She bookmarked it, feeling foolish. After years of trying everything from spinning to intermittent fasting, could the answer really be as simple as breathing differently? In her kitchen, Maya noticed something she'd inherited from her grandmother, but never used: a small ceramic rice bowl, white with delicate blue flowers around the rim. Her grandmother had been Japanese-American, but Maya had grown up eating from regular dinner plates, supersizing everything without thinking about it. She picked up the bowl, surprised by how small it felt in her hands. Word count. Part 1, 487. If you've ever felt tired even after a full night of sleep, or frustrated with diets that don't last, tell us in the comments which part of this story feels familiar, and stay with us for the next chapters. Maya started small. The next morning, instead of immediately reaching for her phone, she sat on her bed and tried the breathing practice she'd read about. 7 minutes of deep belly breathing, one hand on her chest, one below her navel. It felt awkward at first, like trying to remember how to breathe. Her mind wandered to work emails and her growing to-do list. But something shifted on the 3rd day. The breathing created a pocket of calm before the day's chaos began. Maya found herself naturally waking up 5 minutes earlier, not from an alarm, but from her body preparing for this quiet ritual. Chen noticed her at lunch, eating from a small container, instead of her usual desk-grab sandwich. "Is that a bento box?" he asked. "Sort of. I've been reading about portion sizes in Japan. This is actually my grandmother's rice bowl," Maya explained, feeling slightly embarrassed. "I know it sounds weird, but I'm trying to eat the way she might have." Chen smiled. "My mother still uses the same bowl for rice that her mother used. She says the bowl teaches your stomach what enough feels like." Maya had been skeptical about the bowl at first. It seemed impossibly small compared to the dinner plates she was used to. But when she served her morning oatmeal in it, something interesting happened. She ate more slowly, paying attention to each bite instead of scrolling through her phone. The smaller portion didn't leave her hungry. It left her satisfied in a way she hadn't experienced in years. The breathing practice began affecting her evenings too. Maya had always been a late-night snacker, standing in her kitchen at 9 p.m., stress-eating crackers while mentally replaying work problems. But the morning breathing sessions seemed to create a different relationship with her nervous system. She found herself naturally gravitating toward herbal tea instead of mindless snacking. 2 weeks in, Maya noticed something her fitness tracker couldn't measure. She felt calmer. Not dramatically different, but like the constant, low-level anxiety that had been her baseline for years was starting to quiet down. Her friend Jessica noticed over drinks on Friday night. "You seem different," Jessica said, squinting at Maya across the table. "Are you doing something new? New skincare routine?" "Just sleeping better, I think," Maya replied, not wanting to explain the breathing exercises and rice bowl. It would sound too simple, too strange. "Well, whatever it is, keep doing it. You look, I don't know, less stressed." Maya realized Jessica was right. The chronic tension she'd carried in her shoulders had started to ease. She wasn't waking up with her jaw clenched anymore. These weren't the dramatic before and after transformations she'd been chasing with diets and workouts, but they felt more sustainable, more real. Word count, Part 2, 453. 3 weeks into her quiet morning routine, Maya faced her first real test. A major campaign launch at work demanded 14-hour days, and her old patterns began creeping back. She found herself reaching for her phone before breathing, grabbing coffee and a muffin instead of sitting with her small bowl. But something had shifted in her body's wisdom. Even when she skipped the morning breathing, she craved it. The rice bowl sat on her counter like a gentle reminder of a different pace. On the worst day, when she'd grabbed fast food for lunch, Maya found herself transferring it to her grandmother's bowl anyway, eating slowly despite the chaos around her. Chen approached her during one particularly stressful afternoon. "How is your breathing practice going?" he asked quietly. Maya looked up surprised. She hadn't told him about that specifically. "How did you know? You seem more present in meetings, less frantic. In Japan, we call it hara no kokyu, belly breathing. It's not about fitness. It's about telling your nervous system it's safe to rest." That phrase stuck with Maya, telling her nervous system it was safe to rest. She realized she'd been living in a constant state of fight or flight for years, checking emails in bed, eating while standing, rushing through everything as if her life depended on speed. Maya's doctor appointment that week provided unexpected validation. Dr. Kim reviewed her recent blood work with a puzzled expression. "Your cortisol levels have improved significantly since your last visit. Have you been doing anything different? New medication?" "Just breathing exercises and eating smaller portions," Maya said, feeling almost sheepish. Dr. Kim nodded thoughtfully. "Stress reduction can have powerful effects on metabolism. Whatever you're doing, it's working. Your inflammatory markers are down too." Maya left the appointment with a strange mix of vindication and disbelief. Years of aggressive dieting and intense workouts had left her feeling defeated, but a few weeks of breathing and using her grandmother's bowl were creating measurable changes. Jessica wasn't as supportive when Maya tried to explain her new routine over dinner. "So you're basically just breathing differently and eating from a tiny bowl?" Jessica laughed. "Maya, you know there's no magic bullet, right? You still have to actually work out and restrict calories." Maya felt her face flush. Part of her wondered if Jessica was right. Maybe she was just going through a temporary phase, and reality would eventually reassert itself. But that night, as she sat in bed doing her breathing practice, Maya realized something had fundamentally changed. She wasn't approaching this as another diet to fail at or routine to abandon when life got hard. These practices felt like coming home to something she'd forgotten about herself. Word count, Part 3, 447. Would you rather force yourself with willpower or redesign your environment and habits like this character is learning to do? Comment which path makes more sense to you, and share this episode with someone who needs a gentler approach to change. 6 weeks in, Maya's transformation wasn't happening in a gym or through meal prep containers. It was occurring in the quiet spaces, the 7 minutes each morning when she breathed deeply, the pause before each meal when she served food in her grandmother's bowl, the way she now naturally gravitated toward herbal tea instead of late-night snacking. The real test came during a business trip to Los Angeles. Maya packed her small ceramic bowl in bubble wrap, feeling slightly ridiculous but knowing she needed its familiar presence. At the hotel, she maintained her morning breathing ritual, sitting cross-legged on the firm mattress instead of her bed at home. Even at client dinners with large portions and business pressure, Maya found herself naturally eating more slowly, stopping when satisfied rather than when the plate was empty. Her colleagues barely noticed. She was simply present, engaged, not frantically checking her phone or rushing through meals. Chen called to check on the campaign progress, and Maya mentioned how different this trip felt compared to previous work travel. Before, I'd come back exhausted, having eaten terribly and slept badly. This time, I feel steady. That's Shinrin-yoku in a way, Chen said. Not just forest bathing, but finding calm in any environment. You're carrying your practice with you instead of letting circumstances control your nervous system. Back home, Maya began noticing changes that went beyond her appearance. Her sleep had deepened, not just longer but more restorative. She'd wake up feeling actually rested instead of heavy and foggy. Her skin had cleared up without expensive treatments. Most surprisingly, her relationship with food had shifted from anxiety and restriction to curiosity and satisfaction. The rice bowl had become central to this transformation, not because of its size, but because of the ritual it created. Each meal became an opportunity to pause, breathe, and eat with attention. Maya found herself naturally choosing foods that made her feel good, rather than foods she thought she should want. Her mother visited that weekend and immediately noticed the changes. "You look different, honey. Calmer. Have you lost weight?" "Some, but it's more about feeling better in my body," Maya replied, serving lunch in 2 small ceramic bowls. "I've been using Grandma's dishes." Her mother picked up the familiar bowl, turning it over in her hands. She always said this bowl knew exactly how much was enough. I'd forgotten about that. They ate slowly, talking instead of rushing. Maya realized this was how meals were supposed to feel: nourishing, connecting, peaceful, not fuel grabbed between tasks or comfort sought during stress. That evening, Maya looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. The changes were subtle but real: brighter eyes, easier breathing, a softness in her face that hadn't been there in years. She wasn't dramatically thinner, but her body felt like home again. Word Count, Part 4, 463. 2 months into her practice, Maya discovered the secret wasn't in the breathing exercises or the rice bowl itself. It was in the complete rewiring of her relationship with time, space, and her own body. The revelation came during what should have been a crisis. Her company announced layoffs, and Maya's department faced a massive reorganization. In the past, this kind of stress would have sent her into weeks of insomnia, emotional eating, and frantic over-exercising to manage anxiety. But something fundamental had shifted. The morning of the announcement, Maya sat with her breathing practice as usual. 7 minutes of deep belly breathing, feeling her nervous system settle before facing uncertainty. At lunch, she ate slowly from her grandmother's bowl, present with her food instead of spiraling about the future. Chen found her that afternoon looking remarkably calm for someone whose job might be in jeopardy. "How are you handling all this?" he asked. "Differently than I would have a few months ago," Maya admitted. "I think I finally understand what you meant about telling my nervous system it's safe to rest. I'm not trying to control everything anymore." That evening, Maya realized the profound shift that had occurred. For years, she'd approached health as a battle, against her appetite, her tiredness, her stress, her body's natural rhythms. She'd been trying to force her way into wellness through willpower and punishment. But the Japanese practices Chen's grandmother had known weren't about force. They were about creating conditions where the right choices became natural, effortless. The morning breathing didn't require discipline after the first week. Her body craved it. Eating from the small bowl didn't feel restrictive. It felt like exactly enough. Maya had discovered something that Western wellness culture rarely discussed: the power of environmental design over willpower. She'd changed her surroundings: the bowl that defined portions, the morning ritual that calmed her nervous system, the evening routine that promoted rest, and her body had naturally responded. The weight she'd lost was almost beside the point. More important was the energy she'd gained, the sleep that now restored her, the calm that carried her through challenges that would have previously overwhelmed her. At her 3-month follow-up appointment, Dr. Kim was visibly impressed. "Your blood pressure is optimal, cortisol levels are in normal range, and your inflammatory markers suggest your body is no longer in chronic stress mode. This is the kind of change I usually see with medication." "It was just breathing and eating differently," Maya said, still somewhat amazed herself. "Never underestimate the power of nervous system regulation," Dr. Kim replied. "You've essentially taught your body how to rest and digest properly again." Maya understood now why Chen had seemed so effortlessly healthy. It wasn't genetics or luck. It was a lifetime of small, consistent practices that supported his body's natural wisdom instead of fighting against it. Word count, Part 5, 471. A year later, Maya's morning breathing practice had become as automatic as brushing her teeth. The rice bowl sat in its place of honor in her kitchen cabinet, used daily, washed gently, a tangible reminder of how small changes could reshape everything. She'd survived the company reorganization. Not just survived, but thrived. Her new, calm presence had been noticed by leadership, and she'd been promoted to lead a team. More importantly, she'd maintained her practices through the transition, proving to herself that these weren't fragile habits dependent on perfect conditions. Chen had become a true friend, often joining Maya for lunch where they'd eat slowly from small containers, discussing everything from work strategy to family. He'd shared more stories about his grandmother's wisdom, and Maya had begun to understand that these practices weren't exotic or foreign. They were simply human rhythms that modern life had taught her to ignore. The physical changes had stabilized into a new normal. Maya was 30 pounds lighter, but more significantly, her body felt reliable again. She slept deeply, woke refreshed, had steady energy throughout the day. Her skin glowed, her digestion was smooth, and the chronic low-level anxiety that had hummed in the background for years had quieted to almost nothing. Jessica had eventually become curious about Maya's transformation, especially when her own high-intensity approach to fitness left her injured and exhausted. "I keep thinking about what you said about making the right choice easier instead of trying to force yourself into the wrong system," Jessica had said recently. "Maybe I could try that breathing thing you do." Maya's mother had started using her own set of small bowls, inspired by watching her daughter's relationship with food become peaceful and sustainable. 3 generations of women connected through ceramic and wisdom. On this particular morning, as Maya folded her legs for her breathing practice, she held her grandmother's bowl for a moment before setting it aside. The weight of it in her hands reminded her of everything that had changed, not just her body, but her entire understanding of what health actually meant. It wasn't about perfection or punishment. It wasn't about conquering her appetite or forcing her body into submission. Health was about creating conditions where her body's natural wisdom could emerge. It was about nervous system regulation, environmental design, and the profound power of consistent, gentle practices. As she began her breathing, one hand on her chest, one below her navel, Maya felt the familiar settling that started each day. Her grandmother had known something that fitness culture was still learning. Transformation happened not through force, but through rhythm, not through restriction, but through regulation. 7 minutes later, she opened her eyes to another day of living in a body that felt like home. Word count, part 6, 458. If this story reminded you that real transformation comes from small habits repeated over time, not from overnight fixes, subscribe to the channel, tell us which country you watch from, and invite someone to start this journey with you in the next story. Total word count, 2,779.